Good morning, backyard kids. This summer is all about confidence, which is learning to see yourself the way that God sees you. And this morning, I've got another story for you that's going to teach us a little something about that. Today's story took place a long, long time ago in a land called Babylon. And the king of Babylon at the time was a man named Nebuchadnezzar. And something that you need to know about him is that King Nebuchadnezzar went big. He didn't do anything halfway. In fact, he had a gold statue made that was over 90 feet tall, and he set it up near the city on a broad plain called Dura. So he was so excited about this statue that he decided that a huge party was in order to honor the statue. And so he invited all of his royal officials, and this included 3 Jewish men who had come to Babylon as captives. These men were named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You may have heard their names before. So they came to the plains of Dura with everyone else, and everyone gathered in front of the king's statue. Then a messenger came and delivered a message from the king. And the king told them that whenever they heard the sounds of the instruments playing, that they should bow down and worship the golden statue that he'd had put up. And if they refused, they would be thrown into a fiery furnace. So soon after this announcement, the first sounds of the horns playing happened, and all of the officials threw themselves down on the ground in front of the statues, except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, some other officials noticed this, and they were all too happy to run straight to King Nebuchadnezzar and tattletale on him as quickly as they could. So they reminded the king that he had made this decree that if people didn't follow the rules he had made, if they didn't bow down and worship the statue, that they should be thrown in the fiery furnace. So as you might guess, King Nebuchadnezzar was angry. He was so mad that he called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to him, and he confronted them. But they didn't try to cover it up. They didn't lie. They confirmed exactly what the other men had said about them, and they told the king that statue was not their God, and they would only bow down to the one true God. They understood what the punishment was, but they also felt like their God would save them. But they told the king that even if he didn't, they still wouldn't do it because it wasn't the right thing to do, that they would only bow down and worship their God, the one true God. Well, you have to imagine this made old King Neb even more furious. He was so mad that he reacted right then, and he called for the people to crank up the heat on the furnace 7 times the normal temperature. And he had his soldiers tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them directly into the furnace. Well, as mad as the king was, he wanted to stay and watch. He wanted to see these men who had had the audacity to disobey him burn up. That's pretty drastic. But as he watched, something different happened. Instead of the 3 men that he'd had thrown in the furnace, now there were 4. And one of them, he said, shone kind of like an angel. And as he watched, all 4 men just walked around in the furnace like nothing was going on, like there was no ropes binding them, and that like they weren't in the middle of a huge fire. The king was amazed. He had his soldiers open the furnace and bring the men out to him. And as the 3 men came back out, they were completely untouched by the fire. They didn't have a single burn mark on them. Well, this kind of changed the king's mind about some things. And as usual, the king went big. He immediately decreed that because of the way that God had saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that no one would be allowed to speak against this God. He even appointed these 3 men to higher positions of power in his kingdom, all because they refused to bow to a statue and instead only honor God. See, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had confidence in God. They stood for what they believed, and they trusted that God would take care of them. They knew that they could be strong because God was with them. And you can do that too. You can have confidence for the same reason. You can trust that God is always with you. Have a great week, guys.